Hey, good morning, everyone, and it is a genuine pleasure to be here. Hopefully I got the mic turned on because about 20 people have told me to do that, so can you hear me? I also noticed, what an agenda. I mean, my goodness, you guys are going to hear about some good stuff, but I was looking through the agenda, and I noticed I think I am one of, the only non-PhDs going to be on the podium, so you get what you pay for here. No, just kidding. It's a great pleasure to talk to you folks. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about DHS's newest office, the Office for Countering Weapons of Mass Destruction. Formed really almost just about a year ago. Our law was passed on December 21st, 2018. And who knows, just ask the group because we have a pretty smart group here, I think. Who knows what legacy offices from DHS were combined to create CWMD? Anyone? DNDO and OHA, right? And some people say, well, where did that come from? We got the nuclear scientists over here, we got the health folks over here, but I think if you actually look at it and you sort of do a Venn diagram analysis, because I wondered the same thing myself, but when you look between nuke rad, chem, bio, and you put those Venn diagrams over how you detect, how you respond, how you prepare, how you prevent, there's a lot of overlap. Now, there is definitely some very uniqueness, and that's where I think our office, we have the scientists that can help us with that. But what we're trying to do is make our government as effective and efficient as possible by bringing these strengths together while still honoring the uniqueness. And I will offer to you that as this office came together, let's put it this way, the offices were not in love. It's a forced marriage, okay? And so there's been some bumps in the road, and we're working through the cultural issues there. And I think we're starting to really move forward as we start to gain my Coast Guard officer, our sea legs as to where we want to go with this. So what is our job? What does the law ask us to do? Well, the line that always sticks out to me is enhance and coordinate the federal effort towards CWMD. And as I kind of got back, you can see from my background there, I've been mostly in operations security. I spent a little time the last couple years in personnel readiness. The Coast Guard asked me to work there. So I'm kind of getting my feet back into the security thing. And it seems like as I look across the landscape, a lot of people are doing WMD. And a lot of people are doing a lot of good work in WMD. But I'm not seeing that holistic approach where we're sort of all pulling together on WMD. And I think that's where Congress and the DHS leadership who put this office together, I think that's where they were thinking is, how do we get to a more holistic effort for countering weapons of mass destruction? So what do? One of our jobs is really to bring science forward to the operators, to our operating components, right? Anybody got any ideas on who are the operating components for DHS? You can't answer this one because who are my customers? Coast Guard, CBP, I'm hearing FBI, DOJ. Those are the people we're trying to help. We are and I put this in terms that I hope that I try to get people to sort of see where we're going with this. We take deep science, turn it into applied science, and then give it to operators so they can do their jobs better. And our office is sort of the conduit to do all that. And to do that, we need to understand what the operators need, but we also need a deep understanding of what the threat is, because where DHS has evolved to. How many of you guys were involved in Homeland Security 2001 to 2004, that time frame, right? So what did DHS, what did the nation do then? We kind of just threw money at the problem, right? Let's see what works. Well, we have evolved since then, and we are very focused now, and probably some of you folks made a lot of money doing that, but we were looking now to see what are the actual requirements? And I think that's where DHS has really evolved to. Because what we're trying to do is, and I ask the staff this question all the time, if we had one more dollar to spend, where would we put it to make sure that the nation is safer tomorrow? And so what are a couple of things that we're looking at right now? Data integration. There is a lot of data out there, right? But we have sensors, but no one can turn that data into knowledge. And you're a little overwhelmed by the data. So you're struggling to understand what's the anomaly and when should you respond. Because part of the trick to balancing homeland security is you have to keep safe from threats, but you also have to facilitate commerce, right? When I was at TSA and the secretary would ask me, how do we address this aviation threat? Well, we know how to make aviation perfectly safe, right? Don't fly. But that doesn't work. So you got to work through that, right? So it's always a balance. So we have to figure out how do we best integrate all the data we're getting. Any Star Trek fans here? Remember the universal translator? Right? You could talk to anybody. That's what we're looking for. So I know this is CWMD in the digital age. That's what we are looking for, is how do we get a universal translator so we can bring it, because, and you guys know the landscape, the sense, and this is just the way we work, right? There's proprietary information in the sensors, there's there's original systems, and there's Windows 10 systems, and how do we make it all work in an effective way? So that's one of the things we're looking at. The other thing we're looking at is, from an office standpoint, is how do we get the best of the ideas and equipment into the hands of the operators? And this is where I need, for the industry folks here, this is where we need your help. Because as an operator, and I did that for many years, you know what the problem is, and then because just the way human nature is, you already think you have the solution, right? So your requirement is what you think you need. But I don't know what's possible, whereas the industry does. So we ask you to help us with the requirements. And the example I like to give is, and I remember reading about this in graduate school. So Apple is out there doing a survey in like 2003, and they're asking all these CEOs, if we were to give you a phone that you could do email on, take pictures on, access the then burgeoning internet, and listen to music on, would you like it? Most of them said, what would I want that for? How many people don't have a phone in this room right now that can do all that? Right? So people sometimes don't know exactly what they need. And so that's why we need the industry to help us understand what is the art of the possible. Another one of our priorities here is we're looking, you guys have probably seen some of our work on BD21, the next version, if you will, of BioWatch. We're still in the early stages of that acquisition, but what we're trying to accomplish here is quicker, better, faster, more accurate detection. So if you're able to think in that way, that would be extremely helpful, because that's where we want to go. We want to take it to the next level, such that the sooner we detect, the sooner we can respond. So I'm going to stop here because I really like to take questions. I can, if there's no questions, I can give you a couple more thoughts, but I would much rather open it up for questions. So.
Yeah, hi, Secretary Raiscot. This is Cal B. Secretary with Defense Daily. Yep. You mentioned BD21, and I think it was in October, there were some state and local health officials testifying before the Congress, and they kind of slammed your organization's approach to how you were starting to roll this out. Not enough cooperation with the state and locals, and they thought the technology that you were gearing towards outdated military technology. Could you, are you changing tack at all? Are you trying to listen better to the state and locals? You know, sort of what's the plan the next year? Where are we going to see BD21 a year from now? You know, if you just fill that in a little bit.
Yeah, I was able to see that hearing, and I understand the concerns. And I think in some ways they're genuine, but I think in some ways it's a communications issue, right? I mean, how many former military folks we got in the room? All right, what's the first thing that's always in the after-action report on any exercise? Communications, right? because it's human nature, right? We just don't do that well. I'm not sure why. So I think part of it's a communications issue, but we are taking a step back because I think we do have to get connected to our stakeholders, primarily the first responders, and see what they really need. And in fact, one of my first trips a couple of weeks ago, I went up to New York City, big BioWatch city, big securing the city, met with the police, all the folks up there that are doing this, public health, because I need to hear what they need. So yeah, I take what was said there, and I think there was some truth there. I think we've also not done a good job of advertising what we're doing. I think we sort of got maybe a message out there that we have the solution and we're implementing. We're not there. We are still in the analysis of alternatives mode. We're very early in the acquisitions process, and we are looking forward to the input from our stakeholders as to what they need. BioWatch works every day. We just want to enhance it. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Microphone, sorry.
Sure.
Good morning, Mr. Assistant Secretary. Thank you for being here. My name is Jay Mazroff. I'm with the SBA, and I happen to live in Baltimore, unfortunately the second city with high crime. And I'm definitely getting your perspective of how the industry and even government could have a greater web to assure the communities, especially in a high criminal area, the citizens will feel more protected, while at the same time making sure that our personal freedoms are not infringed upon. Thank you.
So always a delicate balance, right? But I think the key to that is, and you'll see it in every first responder, law enforcement, even public health scenario, is really community engagement. If the first time you're talking to the community is when there's a crisis, that's probably not going to go well. So that's what I do. The guys on the staff, the guys and gals on the staff know my mantra is inclusive, not exclusive. If you bring everybody to the table, the right answers will bubble out. So my simple answer to you, I mean, I'm not managing a city. That's not what I do. But my simple answer to you is community engagement, and I think that goes a long way. Ma'am.
Good morning, Daphne Zweifel, Procentrics. We do a lot of work at DHS, and I'm totally new to your organization, so I apologize if I ask a silly question. Sure. But you mentioned you want to have industry help you kind of understand what could be, the art of the possible. Mm-hmm. And if you do that, you're going to get all kinds of answers, some of which could be very relevant, very doable, some of which are just not even in the art of the feasible, right? So how do we get at least a good working knowledge of your current state, every layer of your current state? That way, at least we can see what can we optimize, what can we leverage, what works, in addition to what you believe are constraints that maybe we can even overcome. So if we could get that as is, we can really come in with a really meaningful discussion around some 2B.
No,
I
understand that completely. And what I will offer is that we do conduct industry days. And one of my first jobs, I don't remember when that was, Ruth, maybe 6 or 8 weeks ago, was up out at the Bethesda Marriott. We had like 600 people there, right? Industry reps, where we do try to do that. So we will, if you give your card to Ruth, we'll make sure you're invited to the next one, where we do just what you asked. We sort of, and we do it jointly with the Department of Defense and the JPDO there. And so we kind of outline the threat, outline current state, and then outline our aspirations. And I'm not sure we've done a lot of that in the past, but we are certainly going to be much more aggressive on that in the future, because I think the people in this room are the people that we need to have help us here, both on the academic and in the industry side. Because, I mean, there's no one good idea. So any other questions?
Hi. You mentioned that you're looking at a more holistic approach. So I was wondering if you're looking towards other organizations, like the ones that are speaking today, and how you're working with them to maybe bring over some best practices or just have some cooperation. I think there was some work with BD 21 and DARPA. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I have been out making the rounds, to all the federal departments and meeting with all the right folks in DOD, the Homeland Defense folks, the DITRA folks, energy, FEMA, just was over with the HHS. And so what I'm trying to do is actually just, because, and I should have mentioned this, I'm sitting in my briefings there on my first week in, and one of the staff members says to me, one of the rubs here is I don't think anybody understands what we do. Even in the building, even in Vermont Avenue building. And I think that's where I'm putting a lot of effort, because I don't think our office and we, DHS, have done a good job in explaining what was the sort of desired national outcome from creating this office. And I was just over with his GAC staffers who actually wrote the bill, and they would agree. So that's what I'm trying to do, is explain to them where we add value and bringing people in, because I think if you read the law, to enhance and coordinate the federal effort, it doesn't say lead the federal effort. It says just get all the right people at the table and make sure that we have a course that is going to make us safer today than we were, safer tomorrow than we were today. So that's what we're trying to do. We're reaching out to everybody, and not just at the federal level, but state and locals, as well as academia. I have very much reinvigorated our office's relationship with DHS S&T. We are trying very much to see what's out there, because I think we had taken a little bit of a myopic view there on, let's just go with what do you guys call it, commercial off the shelf. That may not be the answer all the time. Okay. Sure.
Justin Taylor from Nobles. I think across the broader WMD Enterprise, we're seeing a shift from counterterrorism focus to more near peers, and I think an example of that is the Salisbury incident a few years ago. Mm-hmm. So how do you see that shift affecting your mission?
So I think it just makes it even more important. But I think some of the basic skills that were used on and it's funny, because when I was over at Ditcher, they do a wonderful morning brief, and I was allowed to sit in there with Vale Oxford, their director, and watch the brief. And they sort of talk about the world scene as you described it, and nation-state actors and where we're going. And I can remember sort of when I was on. How many of you remember even what the Homeland Security Council was? Does anybody remember what that was? That was that's something that bubbled up. It was an element of NSC that came up right. So I was as a Coast Guard commander, I was privileged to serve on that in the White House. And remember the global war on terrorism? So that was the big strategy, right? So we've kind of shifted now, but I think in our world, the same ideas of prevention, detection, preparedness, or I should say response and preparedness, they all play. Because again, those Venn diagrams, while they're slightly unique depending on who the actor is, the actual thought process, and I think DNDO used to have this awesome sort of methodology that we're reinvigorating, where they tried to figure out, and I think with a lot of the help of some of the people in this room, from the minute you have the thought that you want to use some WMD, so aspiration to execution, what are all the steps? A lot of the steps are similar. Now, some of the means to stop the steps are going to be different if it's nation state versus individual actor or whatever. But so I think there's a lot of overlap. And we are looking to expand so that we're focused on all aspects of the threat. And I think that's it, right? Am I getting the hook? All right. My pleasure.